So here we are up on a hill overlooking Port Douglas, and this is the famous 4 Mile beach that our hotel is on. What a gorgeous scene. What a gorgeous scene.
And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share. No one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell, echoed the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls, the tenement halls, whispered the sounds of silence.
here we are at dinner. Stay at the Pullman Hotel. And very nice dinner. Very nice dinner. Desserts to come.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So today we were at the Great Barrier Reef. And then tomorrow we are going to the rainforest.
Oh yeah, that is.
Daintree rainforest.
I remember hours and hours of taking kids to it. Because we all like stormy style.
Huzzah!
Ah, there's the huzzah, man.
Huzzah.
All right, yeah. What is the name of the spider?
Golden orb weaving
Golden
spider.
orb weaving
Fully
spider.
grown to as big as my hand in 1.5 months. Okay, and
Wow.
another 1.5 months to fill out and then lay down their egg sac and perish. So 3-month life cycle. Good spiders to have around. They take a lot of insect life away from human habitation. They never leave their web, and they're impressive.
So the males,
Even more impressive then.
the males have to like travel around for different ladies. They're not.
You know, I don't know exactly how independent they are of the web and the female, but I've seen a great many webs with only females on, and then males appear. So they've got to come from somewhere. But
do the females eat the males?
well, I don't know. I've never seen it, but the males disappear. I would say the relationship is tenuous.
So we're visiting the Daintree rainforest this morning, and we're getting ready to go into the forest.
Folks, you won't all see this from where you are, but it's not going anywhere, so if you just bear with me, when you get into the position you'll be able to see it. There's a window here going right to the very top of the forest, and on that tallest of trees there's a huge brown mass of vegetative growth, which is the underside of an epiphyte.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Epiphytes are plants that live on the surface of other plants. We have 330 described species of epiphyte in this forest, but the really big ones like this that grow up near the top of the forest specialise in accessing the energy of the sun and also capturing leaves that fall from above. So they end up with a nice horizontal leafy platform, making them perfect python habitat. Ooh. This is where the big snakes reside. This is habitat to Australia's largest snake, the amethystine python, which can get to 28 feet.
Whoa!
And the bigger the snake, the more obligated it is to remain at the top of the forest. So you very rarely see the really big snakes. They're almost exclusively nocturnal. They hunt with a very highly evolved heat-sensing apparatus built into their jawline that houses infrared receptors. So they can move silently, skillfully across the top of the forest at night time and visualise the heat signature of anything that doesn't have the neutral colourlessness of the forest itself. So mammals and birds stand out like glowing lights, and this serves them particularly well at the top of the forest. They are considered the apex predator, which means they sit at the top of the food chain, and therefore their influence more profoundly affects the health and product. Okay. Now, because they're the apex predator, I have to talk to you a little bit about pythons here and there, and you might be wondering with every reference where these creatures are. All of them are at the top of the forest caught up, so it's very rare to see one on the forest floor during the day at all. But going out every night looking for them for the last 28 years, I got down to 1 per week. Generally 10-foot males. So they're respect to environmental management. So, humans, for the first time, were legislated into a World Heritage existence. My family jumped at the chance to be those humans. We're living in the Cooper Valley in '87 when this process was unfolding, and for the last 28 years this has been my home. So I've been studying the forest by living in it, but we're so heavily regulated that I can't take you as a single group onto my own property. I have to break you into 2 parties to comply with the law. And so Angie, my wife, is taking the other half, and we pass each other at the halfway mark. Same forest, same body of information, but a more manageable, legally, it's called allelopathy. It's quite common in this ancient rainforest, but all tree species that are practitioners of allelopathy can only satisfy their reproductive obligations in partnership with another agent, a vector that will pick the fruit up and transport it away from that circle of chemical suppression and put it down to become a plant. But a vector requires an incentive, and ordinarily it's nutritional, so something would presumably come along and swallow that seed and then deposit at the end of the digestive process elsewhere to become a plant. But whatever once did that is no longer here, and yet whatever it was had to be big enough to not only swallow that whole but also not die in the process. And given that it kills cattle, the scientific community is of the firm opinion that it was the diprotodon, which is the biggest of the megafauna, the now extinct giant marsupials. This diprotodon got to 2.5 tons, which is heavier than a Land Cruiser. And their representation in the fossil record is very well established. They last walked fragments of Australia 5,000 years ago. This is the centre of the last fragment of Gondwana rainforest on the planet, so it stands to reason this is where the megafauna last were, and on that basis the scientific community has resolved, which is all very well except for one glaring anomaly. The tree is still here today, and that's not 5,000 years old, that's about 350 years old. But as it turns out, there's about 5,000 of them left, just in the middle of the Cooper Valley, along with a very large number of the tree species that fall into the same paradigm. Big, starchy, toxic fruit, chemically suppressed by the allelopathy of the parent in a landscape that lacks a feasible vector. And the only way to explain all of them is to attribute this to a human service. Humans were here for 60,000 years. On the 1st of January 1898, the Queensland government legislated for their removal. Not just from here, but from Queensland as a whole, placing them into geographically isolated portions of the state called reserves, where Aboriginal people had to be interred. It was illegal for them to leave. It was illegal for a non-Aboriginal person to go into a reserve. So it was a racial separation protective strategy, and every other state and territory in Australia saw Queensland's leaders inspired and followed suit. And this is how Australia partitioned race until 1975, when Australia finally got the constitutional amendment that allowed it to make laws that outlawed discrimination. And with that, for the first time in 77 years, Australian Aborigines were permitted to leave the reserves. But the federal government doesn't have the power constitutionally to make laws with respect to land. So it was the states that took the Aboriginal people out, and the states have not yet let them back. So this decision has rendered these trees, or rather condemned them to extinction. And World Heritage, which came 90 years after the Aboriginal people were removed, means that Australia has to do whatever is necessary to ensure that these trees don't become extinct. But that means getting humans back into the landscape to resume these functions, and that's not something that's going to happen unless Australians as a whole start talking about the importance of doing so first. So what we need is a radical change of conversation in environmental management in this country. And perhaps as a first step,
you contribute to that
I try to.
service?
I try to. But I'm one voice in the wilderness, and the first human inhabitant in a World Heritage, so our voice is not being received with favourable ears.
Did the Aboriginals actually live in this area?
Yes, but you know, their cultures, which describe the nature of their living, had them for half of the year on the western side of their tribal portion, which was open woodland where they could hunt kangaroo and make fires, and then the other half on the coastal portion. regardless of whether they are west or east, they would have drawn off the rainforest on daily forays, but not actually living in the forest. This place at night time is so incredibly dark that you can't see your hand in front of your face. So, you know, it's not a place that would be likely to be a well-regarded habitat at night time. I've got the technological advantage of flashlights to be able to move through here at night and see what's going on. And my experiences over the last 28 years is the animals at night time have never been hunted by humans, so you can sort of come up close to things and they don't seem to react with fear.
These plants have germinated here. These seeds
That's right.
have germinated.
That's right.
So are they going to be killed?
That's right, they will. So the seedling is supported by the nutrient resource of the seed, and once that's exhausted, then the allelopathy kills them.
And we're talking about this is the parent, the one that's getting strangled.
The big tree there, yep. The yellow rainforest. Well, this is the centre, and this forest that you're standing in once covered not only all of Australia, so there was a time when Uluru would have been buried under this forest, but more than half the land surface of the world, including all of Africa, Madagascar, South America, Sri Lanka, India, New Zealand, New Caledonia, and Antarctica. So there was a time when Antarctica was covered by this, and the fossil record of Antarctica today is of the Cooper Valley. Okay, so it's incredible that it still exists at all, even though it's a tiny fragment, but it does allow us to step back in time to consider the staging point of what led to what you've seen elsewhere in your travels around Australia and those other parts of the world that I mentioned. 7 years after, the couple that took possession of this parcel of land did so by boat. There were no roads or ferries, not for another 29 years, but they suffered a double tragedy with their newborn baby taken by a python. In a desperate attempt to get help, the father drowned in Hutchinson's Creek, leaving the poor mother in her utter grief to the very forest that took both her husband and baby without any roads, without any form of communication, and she did her utmost simply to extricate herself. But she didn't replace herself, so this property remained unpopulated by humans for the remainder of the duration of the logging period, which is why it's in the condition it is today. But all the other properties around this one, with humans attached, became the custodians of this terrible knowledge, and it's been my experience that when tragedy strikes a human population sharing a natural environment in common, then it becomes the very mechanism that ensures that there's no recurrence of that tragedy. So when my wife was about to give birth to our first child, the farmer who lost his cattle to the dinosaur tree came to talk to us about the danger of having a baby in python habitat, and to make sure that we knew that this was the property that lost the baby in 1934. Which we didn't know, so it certainly enlivened us to the greater scope of danger. But I also felt quite confident at the time, having gone out every night looking for these things as a profession, that I should be able to find one if it's threatening the periphery of the dwelling with my new baby in. But on that first night, I went outside to see if there were any snakes around and found the biggest python I'd ever seen just outside the dwelling, a 6-metre amethystine python. So its arrival on the periphery of the dwelling on that first night, subject to the farmer's forewarning, left me in no doubt as to the python's purpose. And of course this put me into an instant dilemma, because there's nothing quite so fundamental as a parent's responsibility for the care of a newborn baby. But in a World Heritage context, where legislatively prohibited from intervening, it's illegal for me to touch a snake, which does nothing to diminish the snake's determination to kill the newborn human, which is also a World Heritage inhabitant. So the legislators failed to factor in that complication into their regulatory deliberations, and it becomes a legislative dilemma. So my wife and I had to come up with a solution to this problem, quick, smart, and luckily for me, before I came to live here, I spent 7 years working in remote Aboriginal landscapes as an outdoor educator, so I'd had quite the exposure to the significance of the human part in the landscape. When I was confronted by that giant snake on that first night, I couldn't help but look at it, but from the advantage of the Kukuyalanji, the original human inhabitants, because they would have long been in possession of the knowledge of that particular phenomenon. No doubt through original tragedy, they would have also been able to anticipate with a tremendous reliability that with every new baby born, the biggest snake within chemical reach would be there that night, whether it likes it or not. It's driven there through a pheromonal dictate, but straight into the waiting skill set of the Aboriginal adults, straight into the communal fire, and straight into the human consumer interest, taking into the human consumer the formidable hunting prowess of that great predator, leaving the landscape safer for its removal. Not just for other humans, but for tree kangaroos and other arboreal mammals. No doubt the newborn baby was celebrated in its addition to the family through a python feast, in no small part for the part that it played in bringing that great danger to such an advantageous human end. And the chemical signal between mother and baby that drew the python would continue to draw, but with the death of python number 1, python number 2 would then be dictated into the proximity of the baby. So I don't know how many pythons the Aboriginal parents could take with every new baby born, but I can only imagine the human interest being best served by exploiting the phenomenon for all it was worth. And over 60,000 years, that's a lot of babies and a lot of pythons. So ultimately, those pythons should have been marked in 2 distinctive ways. On the one hand, they don't seem to be able to resist the chemical signal between mother and baby. On the other hand, they're going to be very circumspect in their proximity to an adult human danger. And on that basis, my wife and I agreed the safest place for our baby with this looming threat outside was attached to mum. The python cannot approach a newborn human if it's got an adult human attached. But in Australia, the health services go out their way to try and discourage young parents from sleeping with babies for all the unnecessary risks of crushing, suffocation, SIDS. Well, in python habitat it would be murderous not to. So we slept with our babies, we showered with them, we kept mum and baby constantly connected. And of course my python vigil was all the more heightened for the period of uncertainty. I went out every night and found that same snake in a different position around the periphery of the dwelling for 2 weeks. And then it was gone. And I kept going out night after night for 6 months, never saw it again. 19 months after the birth of our first child, we had a second. There it was again on the first night, and again for 2 weeks. 19 months after that, we had a third. She was born on the 10th of July, 14 years ago, when I would have thought that any self-respecting python would be hibernating. So I was particularly interested to see if a newborn baby brought a python out of torpor. There it was again, same snake on the first night and again for 2 weeks. So tremendously predictable, tremendously advantageous to the human interest, but illegal under contemporary environmental legislation. As if to say Australia is taking care of nature by looking after these big snakes. Well, it's the biggest of the pythons that so infrequently come down to the forest floor that are wiping out the tree kangaroos and all the other arboreal mammals. And I've come to realise after 28 years of living here that after the primary objective of eradicating feral pigs, which is our biggest problem in Australia, there's 24 million of them, the second most important human intervention would be the reduction in the number of the really big snakes. To have a mechanism that brings them to you with every new baby born and every night for 2 weeks, and not to utilise that for the fulfilment of that objective is ecologically unsound. But we are a constitutional democracy, and the country, through the wielding of power, will not allow me to be what this forest requires me to be. Neither would it allow its Aboriginal populations to be Aboriginal, in a sense, if they were supported in a repatriation to resume ecosystem management services for the sake of the nation. So in a sense, what we need to do to get things right environmentally is wipe all that pre-existing legislation and start again, but on a foundation that doesn't...
Sitting here relaxing, looking out at Thornton Beach, having a little Daintree tea and a blueberry muffin. Very pretty. Here we are loading into our bus after our cup of tea and muffins here in the Raintree area. So now we're on a boat going up Cooper Creek looking for crocodiles. And birds, and whatever we see. Good little creek here by our lunch stop. Reminds me of my old hometown. We're just finishing up our lunch here at the On the Terp restaurant. Part of a hotel restaurant complex.
Right, exactly.
And we're gonna go get some ice cream after this. Yeah. At the Daintree ice cream company. And we're getting what they have special 4 flavors in 1 cup. And right now, today, it is the 4 flavors are banana, mango, black sapote, and wild seed. Black sapote is supposed to taste like yummy chocolate, and the wild seed kind of like hazelnut.
Yards? Oh my God.
Never seen this before. They eat fruit, and they're bats. They're big bats.
But they're not nocturnal. No, that's not nocturnal like normal bats. They'll fly around.
So they're roosting at the moment, okay?
They're awfully noisy.
Yeah, they're roosting at the moment. You don't think that they're asleep. Some of them are dead asleep and they're not moving. And then, of course, once the sun begins to go down, during the twilight, sunset, they'll fly out, and they can fly a long way away from their roost to go and find fruit trees. outshine Melbourne's arcade, and boy does it outshine. Okay, this is a little bit of theatre just to brighten our day.
Waltzing the tune, oh come a waltzing the tune with me. And his ghost may be heard if you pass by the billabong. Oh come a waltzing Matilda with me.
cities that never close down, from New York to Rio and old London town. But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia home. I'm always traveling, I love being free, and so I keep believing the sun and the sea. But my heart lies waiting over the foam. I still call Australia home. All the sons and daughters spinning around the world, away from their family and friends. But as the world gets older and colder, it's good to know where your journey ends. And someday we'll all be together once more, when all of the ships come back to the shore. I realize something I've always known. I still call Australia home. I still call Australia. I still call Australia. I still call Australia home. I still call Australia. I still call Australia. I still call
I heard my mother from the long distance, making me cry. Young are they, my mother dreaming, the storm clouds building across the sky. Whoa, Morion Wanganupan. The place was changing for the new season. Yambarton Nawalyo Wiripanguya. You're my mother, Baywara. You are creator, young and deep. Poliamo Tao min yarbi Ripunya likangadi Kuwaroko Balpaluna Mabila Ripunya likangadi Wang Europa Gapual kalmi Nungurit mara Ripunya likangadi Tamayi Wangartula Malabiri jama Yeah, my mother, Baywara, you are creator, young Andy. Yeah, my mother, Baywara, you are creator, young Andy. I heard my mother from the long distance making me cry, young Andy. My mother dreaming, the storm clouds building across the sky. Oh, Murion Wanganupan. The place was changing for the new season. Yambarto.
I came from the dream time, from the dusty red soil plains. I am the ancient heart, the keeper of the plain. I stood upon the rocky shores, I watched the tall ships come. For 40,000 years I've been the first Australian. I came upon the prison ship, bowed down by iron chains. I fought the land, endured the lash, and waited for the rains. I'm a settler, I'm a farmer's wife, on a dry and barren run. A convict, then a free man, I became Australian.
I'm the daughter of a digger who sold the motherlode. The girl became a woman on the long and dusty road. I'm a child of the Depression, I saw the good times come. I'm a bushy, I'm a battler, I am Australian. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We'll share a dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian.
I'm a teller of stories, I'm a singer of songs. I am Albert Amateur, and I paint the ghostly guns. I'm Clancy on his horse, I'm Ned Kelly on the run. I'm the one who lost Matilda, I am Australian.
I'm the hot wind from the desert, I'm the black soil of the plains, I'm the mountains and the valleys, I'm the drought and flooding rain. I am the rock, I am the sky, the rivers where they run, the spirit of this great land. I am Australian. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We'll share a dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We'll share a dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian. I am, you are, we are Australian.
We're happy little Vegemites, we're bright as bright can be. We all enjoy our Vegemite for breakfast, lunch and tea. Our mummies say we're growing stronger every single week because we love our Vegemite. We all adore our Vegemite. It puts a rose in every tree. It puts a rose in every tree. It puts a rose in every tree.
Vegemite, the delicious spread, provides the vitamin B1 your family needs daily. Be sure you put Vegemite next to the pepper and salt whenever you set the table.